The purple sky of Valthara burned with orange flames as another city fell to the enemy. Elder Physician Zaraka pressed her long, thin fingers against the communication panel in her laboratory. Her blue skin had turned pale with fear. Outside her window, the beautiful crystal towers of her people lay broken and smoking. The Cthulhu swarm had arrived 3 days ago. Their massive black ships had dropped from space like falling stones. Then came the creatures themselves, millions of insect-like aliens with sharp claws and no mercy. They moved as one mind, destroying everything in their path. They ate entire cities. They consumed worlds. Zara-Ka watched her people run through the streets below. The Valtharans were healers, not fighters. For 1,000 years, they had helped other races across the galaxy. Their medicine could cure diseases that killed millions. Their hospitals floated in space, treating anyone who needed help. They had never built weapons. They had never needed to. Now they were dying. The communication device in front of her could reach every known species in this part of space. It would send her message to 100 different worlds. Most would ignore her. Some might feel sad for her people, but they would not come. The Cthulhu were too dangerous. Fighting them meant death, but Zaraka had to try. She activated the device and began to speak. Her voice shook with fear and sadness. This is Elder Physician Zaraka of Valthara. Our world is under attack by the Cthulhu swarm. Our people are being destroyed. We have no weapons. We have no soldiers. We are a peaceful people who have only tried to help others. She paused as an explosion shook her building. Dust fell from the ceiling. Through her window, she could see the Cthulhu creatures climbing over the walls of the last safe zone. Her people were trapped inside those walls, like animals waiting to be eaten. We sent our medical ships to help during the Martian plague 50 years ago. We gave our healing technology to anyone who asked. We saved millions of lives across the galaxy. We never asked for payment. We never asked for anything in return. Her voice grew stronger, but tears ran down her blue cheeks. Now we are asking. We are begging. Our children are screaming. Our cities are burning. We have perhaps 2 days before there are no Valtharans left in the universe. Please, if anyone can hear this message, if anyone has the power to fight these creatures, help us. We do not want to die. We do not want our children to die. Another explosion, closer this time. The lights in her laboratory flickered. She could hear the sound of breaking glass from somewhere in the building. The Cthulhu are everywhere. Their ships block out our sun. Their creatures cover our land like a disease. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They only destroy and consume. We estimate their force at over 10 million combat units. We have no military. We have never had need for one. Zaraka looked at a picture on her desk. It showed her with a group of human doctors during the Martian crisis. She remembered how the humans had worked alongside her people. They had been so different, shorter, with strange colored hair and determined eyes. But they had fought the plague with everything they had. They never gave up, even when the situation looked hopeless. If any species receives this message and can help us, we will be forever grateful. We know most of you cannot risk fighting the Cthulhu. We understand. But if you can help, if you can send even a small force, it might give us time to evacuate our children. It might save some of our people. The building shook again. This time, she heard something new. The sound of breaking barriers. The energy shields protecting this district were failing. She had minutes, maybe less. Our coordinates are included with this transmission. We are sending all of our medical research, all of our scientific knowledge with this message. If we die, perhaps our discoveries can still help others. This may be the last transmission from our world. She looked out the window one more time. In the distance, she could see the Cthulhu bioships, huge, living creatures that served as both transport and weapon. They looked like giant insects with wings that blotted out the stars. Smaller flying creatures poured from them like drops of black rain. To any species listening, we are not warriors. We are healers. But our children deserve to live. Our knowledge deserves to survive. If you cannot help us fight, perhaps you can remember us. Perhaps you can tell others that we tried to make the galaxy a better place. The lights went out completely. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. She could hear sounds in the hallways, the clicking and chittering of Kithra warriors. They had broken through. This is Elder Physician Zaraka signing off. May the stars watch over all who hear this message. May peace find you in whatever dark times lie ahead. She ended the transmission and activated the building's emergency protocols. All research data would be transmitted to the emergency bunkers. If any of her people survived, they would need that information. The door to her laboratory exploded inward. 3 Kithra warriors entered, their black armor gleaming in the red light. They moved on 6 legs each, with arms that ended in blade-like claws. Their heads were triangular, with multiple eyes that glowed yellow in the darkness. Zaraka stood straight and faced them without fear. She was a healer. She had saved thousands of lives. If this was how her life ended, she would meet it with dignity. But somewhere in space, her message traveled at the speed of light to 100 different worlds. Most species would mark it as received and then delete it. Fighting the Kithra was suicide, but on Luna Command Station, orbiting the 3rd planet of a small yellow star, Admiral Sarah Chun read the message with growing anger. She remembered the Veltharans. She remembered their kindness during humanity's darkest hour, and she remembered that humans never forgot their debts. Admiral Sarah Chun stared at the holographic display in her office on Luna Command Station. The message from Velthara played for the 3rd time. Each time she heard Elder Physician Zaraka's voice break with fear and sadness. Chun felt her anger grow stronger. "Computer, show me the tactical situation," she said. The hologram changed to show a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy sector. Valthara appeared as a blue dot, surrounded by red markers that represented Kithra forces. The numbers were terrifying. Over 10 million enemy units, according to the alien message. Her aide, Commander Rodriguez, entered the room carrying a datapad. His face was grim. "Admiral, the Intelligence Division has confirmed the Veltharan message. Long-range sensors show massive Kithra bioship formations around their homeworld. It looks like a full invasion force." Chun nodded. She had expected this. The Kithra swarm attacked every few decades, consuming entire worlds before disappearing back into deep space. They were like a plague that moved from star to star. "What's our response capability?" she asked. Rodriguez's face grew even more serious. "The 3rd Fleet could reach Velara in 3 weeks. But Admiral, according to this message, the Valtharans have maybe 2 days before complete extinction." 3 weeks. Chun closed her eyes. In 3 weeks, there would be nothing left on Valtara except empty cities and Kithra breeding grounds. What about closer assets? She asked, though she already suspected the answer. The only human forces in that sector are the 2nd Expeditionary Marine Force. They're conducting training exercises in the Outer Rim. 500 Marines aboard 3 light cruisers. Rodriguez paused. They could reach Velthara in 18 hours. 500 Marines against 10 million Kithra. Chun had seen many impossible situations in her 30 years of military service, but this was beyond impossible. This was suicide. She turned to look out the window at Earth, spinning slowly below. 50 years ago, a plague had swept across Mars. The disease killed humans in days, turning their blood to poison in their veins. Earth's best scientists could not find a cure. Millions had died, and more were dying every day. Then the Valthorans had come. Their hospital ships had arrived without being asked. They had shared their medical technology freely. They had worked alongside human doctors for months, asking for nothing in return. When the cure was finally found, they had helped produce it in massive quantities. They had saved over 20 million human lives. Chun had been a young lieutenant then, stationed on Mars during the worst of the plague. She had watched her friends die, one after another, until the Velthoran cure arrived. She owed her life to aliens who had helped simply because it was right. "Get me Colonel Torres of the 2nd DMF," she ordered. The hologram switched to show a scarred man in his 40s. Colonel Marcus Torres had the weathered face of someone who had seen too many battles. Behind him, Chun could see the bridge of his ship. Marines moved efficiently at their stations. "Admiral Chun," Torres said with a salute. "I assume this is about the Vilotharan situation. You've seen the message?" "Yes, ma'am. My communications officer forwarded it to me 10 minutes ago." Torres paused. "Ma'am, those aliens saved my daughter during the Mars plague. She was 3 years old when she got sick. The doctors said there was nothing they could do. Then the Valtharan medicine arrived." Chun felt a tightness in her chest. So many humans had similar stories. The Valtharans had touched millions of lives across the Earth system. "Colonel, I'm going to be direct with you. You're the only force that can reach them in time. But the odds are impossible. 10 million Kithara against 500 Marines. I cannot order you to take this mission." Torres was quiet for a long moment. Behind him, Chun could see his Marines working at their stations. These were professional soldiers, men and women who had volunteered to serve in the most dangerous assignments humanity could offer. "Admiral, permission to speak freely?" "Granted." The Veltharans didn't ask about odds when they came to help during the plague. They didn't calculate whether it was worth the risk. They just came. Torres looked directly into the camera. "Ma'am, we're United States Marines. We don't abandon our friends." Chun studied his face. She had known Torres for years. He was not a reckless man. He understood tactics and strategy better than most generals. If he was willing to take this mission, he had a plan. "What's your tactical assessment, Colonel?" "The Kithara fight like insects. They're strong individually, but they think as a hive mind. That means they have trouble adapting to unexpected tactics. Humans excel at creative problem-solving and independent action. We can't win a straight fight, but we might be able to cause enough damage to buy time for the Third Fleet to arrive. Your losses could be total." "Yes, ma'am. But if we do nothing, the losses will definitely be total. At least this way, we give the Viltharans a chance." Chun looked at her aide. Commander Rodriguez was staring at the tactical display with the expression of someone doing impossible mathematics in his head. "Rodriguez, what's your assessment?" "Admiral, from a purely military standpoint, this mission cannot succeed. 500 Marines cannot defeat 10 million Kithara in direct combat." He paused. "But Colonel Torres is right about one thing. The Marines specialize in impossible missions. And if they can hold out for even a few days, they might save millions of alien lives." Chun made her decision. Some choices were about more than military tactics. Some choices were about who you were as a people. "Colonel Torres, you are authorized to proceed to Vilthora at maximum speed. Your mission is to provide assistance to the Veltharan government and delay Kithara forces until the Third Fleet can arrive." "Understood, Admiral. We'll make them proud." "Colonel," Chun said quietly, "bring your people home." "Yes, ma'am. We'll do our best." The transmission ended. Chun stood alone in her office, looking out at the stars. She had just sent 500 good people to almost certain death. But she knew it was right. The Valthorans had risked everything to save humans they had never met. Now it was humanity's turn to return the kindness dot in space beyond Luna. 3 human ships changed course toward Valthara. Aboard those ships, 500 Marines prepared for the most impossible mission in human military history. The 3 human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Valthoran system. What they saw made even hardened Marines stop and stare. Valthara had once been called the most beautiful world in this part of the galaxy. The planet was covered with crystal cities that caught sunlight and scattered it in rainbow patterns. Floating gardens drifted through the atmosphere like jeweled clouds. The Valthorans had shaped their world into a work of art. Now it looked like a vision of hell. Massive Kithara bioships surrounded the planet like a dark shell. Each bioship was over a mile long, looking like giant insects with wings that blotted out the stars. Smaller ships moved between them like flies around rotting meat. The planet's surface was covered with what looked like panzer. Millions of Kithara warriors spreading across the continent's. Colonel Torres stood on the bridge of the U.S. Gettysburg, studying the tactical displays. His ship was the largest of the 3 human vessels, but compared to the Kithara fleet, it looked like a rowboat next to battleships. "Sir," said Lieutenant Park, his communications officer, "I'm picking up a transmission from the surface. It's very weak. Put it through." A hologram appeared showing a blue-skinned alien in a torn white robe. It was Elder Physician Zaraka. She was in what looked like an underground bunker. Behind her, Taurus could see other Valthorans, some wounded, all terrified. "Unknown ships," Zaraka said. "Please identify yourselves. Are you here to help or to watch us die?" Torres stepped forward. "Elder Physician Zaraka, this is Colonel Marcus Torres of the United Earth Marine Corps. We received your message. We're here to help." The alien's large eyes widened with shock. "Humans? But your ships are so small. There are so few of you." She looked at something off-screen, then back at Torres. "Colonel, there are millions of Kithara on our world. Their bioships number in the hundreds. You cannot fight them all." "Ma'am," Torres said, "we're not here to fight them all. We're here to fight for you. There's a difference." Through the bunker's camera, Torres could see other Valthorans gathering behind Zaraka. Some were pointing at the screen and speaking rapidly in their musical language. "Colonel Torres," Zaraka said, 50 years ago, your people helped mine during the Martian plague. We have not forgotten your kindness. But this is different. If you try to help us, you will die. All of you." Torres smiled grimly. "Ma'am, dying for friends is what Marines do best. Can you give us tactical information about enemy positions?" For the next 30 minutes, Zaraka and her surviving scientists provided everything they knew about the Kithara invasion. The picture was worse than Torres had expected. The aliens had landed in 12 major population centers. They moved in coordinated swarms, with each group numbering in the hundreds of thousands. Their bioships provided air support and could produce new warriors continuously. The last 3 Valthoran cities were surrounded by failing energy barriers. Each city held between 2 and 5 million civilians. The barriers would fail within hours. Torres gathered his senior staff in the ship's briefing room. The wall showed a 3-dimensional map of Valthara with red markers indicating enemy positions. There was so much red that the planet looked like it was bleeding. "Ladies and gentlemen," Torres said, "we have an impossible situation. The good news is that impossible situations are our specialty." Major Sarah Williams, his second-in-command, studied the display. "Sir, we could split our forces. Hit multiple targets simultaneously to confuse their coordination. The Kithara respond to threats by concentrating forces," added Captain James Park. "If we make enough noise in one area, They might pull troops from other locations. Torres nodded. That's the plan. We're going to make the most noise 500 humans have ever made. Major Williams, take Alpha and Bravo companies. Conduct orbital strikes against the largest bioships. Focus on their command vessels. Sir, our weapons might not be effective against bioships of that size, Williams warned. They don't have to be effective. They just have to be annoying. I want every Kythera in orbit looking at you instead of the surface. Torres pointed to the 3 besieged cities on the map. Charlie, Delta, and Echo companies will make combat drops directly into the cities. We'll coordinate with the Veltharans to set up defensive positions. Sir, said Lieutenant Rodriguez, 250 Marines against millions of ground forces? Rodriguez, how many Spartans held the pass at Thermopylae? 300, sir. And they didn't have modern weapons or orbital support. We'll be fine. The room was quiet for a moment. Everyone knew this was not a mission they would likely survive. But no one suggested abandoning it. Sir, said Sergeant Chen, what do we tell the men? Torres stood up. We tell them the truth. We tell them that 50 years ago, aliens risked their lives to save human children. Now human children are safe, and alien children are dying. We tell them the Marines don't leave friends behind, no matter the odds. 20 minutes later, Torres stood in the main hangar bay addressing his Marines. 500 men and women in combat armor listened quietly. Behind them, drop pods were being loaded with ammunition and medical supplies. People, Torres said, you all know why we're here. The Valtharans helped humanity when we needed it most. They asked for nothing in return. Now they need help, and we're the only ones close enough to provide it. He gestured toward the planet visible through the hangar's force field. The odds are bad. Worse than bad. We're outnumbered 20,000 to 1. The enemy has air superiority and unlimited reinforcements. A Marine near the back called out, Sir, sounds like a fair fight to me. Laughter echoed through the hangar. Torres smiled. These were his people. They understood what needed to be done. In 15 minutes we drop into hell, Torres continued. Some of you will not be coming home, but every single Veltharan who survives this day will owe their life to what we do here. Their children will grow up free because we chose to stand between them and monsters. The Marines began moving toward their drop pods. Torres activated his comm system. Elder Physician Zaraka, this is Colonel Torres. We're coming down. Tell your people to get ready. The alien's voice came back weak but filled with hope. Colonel, are you certain about this? You still have time to leave. Torres looked out at the Kythera-infested planet. Ma'am, we're United States Marines. We don't leave friends to die. See you planetside. He closed the channel and walked toward his own drop pod. Around him, 500 Marines prepared to dive into the biggest fight in human military history. Sergeant Lisa Rodriguez felt her drop pod shake as it hit Vela's atmosphere. Outside the pod's small window, she could see the burning sky filled with Kythera flying creatures. They looked like giant wasps with metal stingers that shot plasma bolts. 30 seconds to impact. King Colonel Torres' voice through the comm system. Remember, we're not here to win. We're here to buy time. Rodriguez checked her rifle one last time. Around her, the other Marines in her squad did the same. They had trained for situations like this, but training was different from reality. Reality involved 10 million alien monsters trying to kill you. The pod hit the ground hard, throwing the Marines against their restraints. The door exploded outward, and Rodriguez rolled out into a nightmare. She was in what had once been a beautiful park in the center of New Velthara City. Crystal trees lay broken and scattered. The grass was black with alien blood. In the distance, she could see the city's energy barrier flickering. Like a dying candle dot, between her and the barrier were about 1,000 Kithra warriors. The aliens looked like armored insects walking on two legs. Each one was 7 feet tall with 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws. Their heads were triangular with multiple eyes that glowed red in the smoky air. They moved with perfect coordination, turning toward the human landing zone as one mind. "Contact front," Rodriguez shouted, opening fire with her rifle. The magnetic accelerator rounds tore through Kithra armor like paper. The aliens had tough shells, but human weapons were designed to punch through tank armor. Her squad spread out, using the broken crystal trees as cover. The Kithra charged toward them in a black wave, making clicking sounds that might have been their version of war cries. "Rodriguez!" came a voice through her helmet cum. It was Lieutenant Park. "Get to the barrier. There are civilians trapped in the medical center." She looked toward the city's energy barrier and saw something that made her heart skip. A group of young Veiltharans, children by the look of them, were trapped outside the barrier. They huddled behind an overturned vehicle, while Kithra warriors circled them like wolves. "Third squad on me," Rodriguez called. "We're going to save some kids." They fought their way across the park, leapfrogging from cover to cover. Rodriguez had fought in 7 different conflicts, but she had never seen anything like this. The Kithra moved like a single organism, responding to threats instantly. But they also followed predictable patterns. "Jensen!" she called to her demolitions expert. "See that crystal spire? The tall blue one?" Corporal Jensen looked where she was pointing. The crystal structure was about 50 feet tall and positioned right over the main group of Kithra warriors. "I can drop it," Jensen said, "but I'll need to get close." "Do it." Williams Martinez, give him cover fire. While her Marines kept the aliens busy, Jensen sprinted toward the spire carrying explosive charges. He moved like a man possessed, dodging plasma bolts and leaping over broken vehicles. The Kithra tried to intercept him, but Rodriguez and her team put down covering fire that forced them back. Jensen reached the spire and attached his charges. Fire in the hole. The explosion brought down the entire crystal structure. It crashed into the middle of the Kithra formation, crushing dozens of warriors and scattering the rest. In the confusion, Rodriguez and her squad reached the trapped children. There were 6 young Veiltharans, all with the same blue skin and large eyes as the adults, but smaller and more fragile looking. They stared at the humans with expressions of wonder and terror. "It's okay," Rodriguez said, though she knew they probably didn't understand English. "We're here to help." One of the children, braver than the others, pointed toward the energy barrier and spoke in musical Veiltharan. Rodriguez didn't need a translator to understand. They wanted to get to safety. "Copy that, kid. Let's go home." The trip back to the barrier was harder. More Kithra had arrived, and they seemed to understand that humans were protecting the children. They concentrated their attacks on Rodriguez's position. That's when something unexpected happened. The energy barrier suddenly opened, and Veiltharan adults came running out. They weren't soldiers. They looked like doctors and scientists. But they carried weapons that looked like crystalline surgical tools, modified into guns. An elderly Veiltharan male reached Rodriguez's position and began speaking rapidly. She couldn't understand his words, but his meaning was clear. He wanted to help fight. "Can you use this?" Rodriguez asked, offering him one of her backup weapons. The alien examined the rifle for a moment, then nodded. He shouldered the weapon like he had been using guns all his life. When he fired at the approaching Kithra, his shots were precise and deadly. More Veiltharans joined the fight. Rodriguez watched in amazement as a female doctor used her medical scanner to identify weak points in Kithra armor, then directed human fire to those exact spots. A group of scientists worked together to turn their laboratory equipment into improvised artillery. "This is beautiful," came Captain Santa's voice over the comm. The aliens are learning human tactics in real time. Rodriguez looked around the battlefield and realized Santos was right. The Valtherans were copying human movement patterns, human use of cover, even human curse words. They were natural learners, and humans were excellent teachers. But the situation was still desperate. For every Kithra they killed, 10 more appeared. The energy barrier was failing, its blue glow growing dimmer by the minute. "All units, this is Colonel Torres," came the voice through her helmet. "Main assault force has broken through the perimeter. We have Kithra bioships landing in the city center. They're bringing in fresh troops." Rodriguez saw the truth of it. 3 massive bioships had settled in the center of New Velthara like living buildings. Thousands of new Kithra warriors were pouring out of them. "Sir," she replied, "we've got civilian volunteers fighting alongside us. The aliens are adapting faster than expected." "Understood. Continue the mission." "Help is coming." "Help?" Rodriguez looked at her tactical display. There were no more human forces within light years. What help could be coming? Then she heard it, a sound that made her grin despite the impossible odds. It was the whistle of incoming artillery fire. But it wasn't coming from human ships. She looked up and saw Valtheran spacecraft in the sky. They were small civilian vessels, medical ships, and research platforms. But they had been hastily fitted with weapons. As she watched, one of them fired a bright blue beam at a Kithra bioship. "Ah, damn," said Jensen, reloading his rifle. "The aliens are bringing their own cavalry." The battle was far from over, but something had changed. The Valtherans were no longer just victims waiting to be rescued. They were fighting back, using human tactics combined with their own advanced technology. Rodriguez grabbed her rifle and charged toward the next group of Kithra. Behind her, a young Valtheran child picked up a human grenade and examined it with scientific curiosity. "Kid," Rodriguez called back, "pull the pin and throw it. Count to 3 first." The child nodded seriously and followed her instructions. The grenade landed perfectly in the middle of an approaching Kithra squad. Rodriguez smiled. These aliens were quick learners indeed. Colonel Marcus Torres lay against the broken wall of a Valtheran hospital, watching the battle rage around him. Blood seeped from a wound in his shoulder, where a Kithra plasma bolt had found its mark. Beside him, elder physician Zaraka worked to treat his injury with tools that looked like they belonged in a science fiction movie. "You humans heal differently than we expected," she said. Her musical voice calmed despite the explosions outside. "Your blood clotting factor is remarkable." Torres managed a weak smile. "We're hard to kill. It's one of our better qualities." Through the hospital window, he could see the battlefield. It had been 18 hours since the first Marine drop pods had landed. 18 hours of continuous fighting against impossible odds. The Kithra kept coming in endless waves. But something extraordinary had happened during the battle. The Valtherans had learned to fight dotted. Started small. Individual aliens picking up human weapons, copying Marine tactics. But it grew quickly. Valtheran doctors turned their medical knowledge into ways to kill more efficiently. Scientists modified their research equipment into weapons. Even the children helped, using their natural curiosity to figure out human technology faster than any adult. Now, human Marines and Valtheran civilians fought side by side as a coordinated force. The aliens had retained their peaceful nature, but they had learned the human concept of righteous anger. "Colonel," came Sergeant Rodriguez's voice through his comm system, "we've got movement in orbit." Big movement. Torres activated his tactical display. What he saw made him laugh, despite his pain. The Third Fleet had arrived early. 50 human warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the system's edge. But they weren't alone. Somehow, word of the battle had spread through the galaxy. Ships from a dozen different alien species had come to help. some because they owed debts to the Veilthorans, others simply because they had heard about humans fighting impossible odds to save strangers. The Kithra bioships in orbit turned to face this new threat, but they were already damaged from hours of fighting the small human force. Major Williams and her Marines had done their job perfectly, keeping the enemy fleet distracted while the ground battle raged. "This is Admiral Chun to all ground forces," came a familiar voice through the comm. "Sorry we're late to the party. Mind if we join in?" The orbital battle was brief but devastating. The combined fleet tore through the Kithra bioships like sharks through fish. Without air support, the ground forces found themselves cut off and surrounded. Torres watched through the hospital window as the remaining Kithra warriors began to retreat. They moved with the same coordination they had shown during the attack, but now it worked against them. As their hive mind realized the battle was lost, all of them began pulling back simultaneously. "They're running," Zaraka said with wonder in her voice. "I have never seen Kithra retreat before." "They've never fought humans before," Torres replied. "We don't fight fair. We fight to win." The cleanup took another 6 hours. Human and alien ships worked together to hunt down the remaining Kithra forces. By the time Vilhara's sun set, the planet was free. Torres found himself in the main medical center of New Veilthara, surrounded by human Marines and Veltharan civilians. The building had been hastily repaired, but it still bore scars from the battle. Through the walls, he could hear the sounds of a city rebuilding itself. Elder physician Zaraka approached his bed carrying a datapad. She looked tired but hopeful. "Colonel Torres," she said, "I have the final casualty reports." Torres braced himself for bad news. He had lost too many good people in this fight. Of the 500 Marines who participated in this battle, 89 are confirmed dead. 162 are wounded but will recover. The rest suffered only minor injuries. Torres stared at her. That's better than I expected." "It is better than anyone expected," Zaraka agreed. "Your Marines fought with extraordinary skill and courage. But more importantly, they taught my people to fight for themselves. Veltharan casualties were much lower than predicted because of human tactical instruction." She sat down beside his bed. "Colonel, why did you do this? Why did your people risk everything for strangers?" Torres thought about the question. It was one he had been asking himself during the long battle. 50 years ago, he said finally, "my daughter was dying from the Martian plague. The doctors said there was no hope. Then your people came. They didn't know us. They didn't know us anything. But they shared their medicine freely because it was the right thing to do." They looked out the window at the city beyond. Veltharans and humans worked together in the streets, clearing debris and rebuilding damaged structures. When good people are in trouble, you help them. It doesn't matter what species they are or what they look like. It doesn't matter if the odds are bad. You help because that's what civilized beings do for each other. Zaraka was quiet for a long moment. "Your species is remarkable, Colonel Torres. In 18 hours, you taught my people not just how to fight, but why fighting is sometimes necessary." 6 months later, Torres stood in the main hall of the newly constructed Human Veiltharan Military Academy. The building was a masterpiece of combined architecture, human functionality merged with Veiltharan artistic beauty. Through the large windows, he could see young humans and Veiltharans training together in the courtyard outside. Admiral Chun stood beside him, watching the students practice combat maneuvers. "How are they progressing?" she asked. "Better than expected," Torres replied. "The Veiltharans are natural strategists. They learn human tactics quickly, but they also improve on them. And the humans are learning Veiltharan technology and medicine. It's the best exchange program I've ever seen." A young Veiltharan approached them. Torres recognized him as one of the children his Marines had saved during the battle. The boy was now 16 and wore the uniform of a military cadet. "Colonel Torres," the young alien said in accented but clear English, "I wanted to thank you again for saving my life." "You don't need to thank me," Torres replied. "Just make sure you use that life to help others." "I will, sir. I'm going to be a Marine." After the boy left, Admiral Chun smiled. "A Valtharan Marine. I never thought I'd see that." "Times change," Torres said. "People change. The galaxy is getting smaller, and we all need to learn to work together." He looked out at the courtyard where humans and aliens trained side by side. They moved with the fluid coordination that only came from absolute trust in your teammates. "Admiral, do you think we'll see the Kithra again?" "Probably," Chun replied. "But next time, we'll be ready. And we won't be fighting alone." Torres nodded. The Battle of Valthara had changed everything. Humanity had shown the galaxy that sometimes the right thing to do was worth any risk. And the galaxy had learned that humans were the people you called when hope seemed lost. As he watched the cadets train, Torres remembered something Zaraka had said during those desperate hours of battle. "You humans don't fight fair. You fight to win." She was right. Humans didn't fight fair. They fought for their friends, they fought for strangers, and they fought for what was right. And in a galaxy full of predators and prey, that made all the difference.